Okay, so I'm excited to talk to you guys about Walt Disney's 1941 animated classic Dumbo, but I've got a small bit of backstory you might find interesting first, and you guys deserve some context, I think. So, Dumbo is a powerfully symbolic and meaningful movie, and I'm actually not sure to what extent any of us know what meaning means, but I'll do my best. Bear with me, it's gonna get good and juicy, don't worry. So, the other day I went on a huge rant about the Chuck E. Cheese mouse, preferably the 1990s backward hat incarnation. Pointing his finger, armed with guitar and skateboard, nobody could keep him down. If this guy were having a bad day, he wouldn't sit at home feeling sorry for himself. He would get out there and face the day, boldly empowering those worse off than himself. Doesn't he just give that vibe? He wants to make sure the kids play safe but also have plenty of fun and win cool prizes at the arcade. He's got to make sure every single birthday kid feels special. There's no time for lethargy or self-pity for this guy. He's always happy because he's always working to make others happy. And isn't that just about the most noble ambition a mascot rat can aspire to? Just let me cook, I'm going somewhere with this. So nothing picks me up faster than picking someone else up. And yes, on occasion, somehow, I actually do think about people who act the way I imagined this mascot would. I can't speak for the new guy. In fact, I don't really have an opinion, other than he looks like he really gets his homework done on time. Anyway, shortly after my empowering rat rant, my buddy went home to watch Dumbo with his fiance on their glorious Trinitron VHS setup. Funny timing, right? I mean, considering the fact that this movie is about a rodent who drops everything to empower an ostracized baby elephant with a genetic abnormality, we've got a lot to talk about. I should mention that I personally look for meaning within films and stories, or more, I look for deeper meaning. What is being discussed and why do I care? Well, the stories we consume are rooted in reality, and if they're not, then we lose interest because they don't mean anything, hence the word meaningful. For example, when the bad guy is winning and we can't imagine a way for the hero to win, we are on the edge of our seat. We know what is at stake because we have been in similar situations ourselves, and we have witnessed the despair of tragedy. The movies usually offer us happy endings for many reasons, but probably mostly because that's what the audience wants. I've actually heard of people demanding their money back after seeing a movie with a bad ending. It's like we feel tricked or ripped off, as though we knew the characters personally and the filmmakers betrayed them somehow. It's very interesting that people hold fiction to this standard, and I believe this behavior implies a law written on our hearts. We don't want the underdog to fail, because we've all been there. We see ourselves in those struggling movie characters, and we don't want to be defeated, hence our desire to see them succeed. If this contract is betrayed, we get bored or disappointed, and understandably so. Just think about it. Of course we get bored if we're not invested in the characters. The hero usually makes the kind of mistakes that we ourselves would make, but if they do something inexcusable or unreliable, the audience fails to identify with the hero and thus loses interest. Think about what that indicates. Whether or not the audience wants their heroes to act heroic is not always obvious to filmmakers, and it also isn't necessarily the case. What we really want is to see the hero make relatable mistakes and then overcome the odds. We want to identify with that story specifically. So what mistakes can a character make to enable growth without ruining themselves for the audience? Mistakes are necessary for the character's hero arc, but what can they really get away with? When does too much comic relief turn our hero into a clown? Again, these things aren't obvious for filmmakers. They've tried nearly everything at this point, and the original Star Wars trilogy is pretty much the gold standard for storytelling. People love that because it's meaningful. We want to see adventures. We want to see sacrifice, courage, and redemption in the end. That's the story of life that we relate to and aspire to. Fiction doesn't mean fake, it means storytelling through distilled experience, or something like that. But anyway, I borrowed the Dumbo VHS and watched it on my Toshiba tube. This is what I've concluded. The opening scene discusses our innate desire to reproduce with the whole stork euphemism. Longing for parenthood is longing for purpose and or self-sacrifice and or meaning. This indicates the goodness of being. The whole scene suggests that it's better to have been born, even despite the pains of being and the pains of childbirth, than to have never existed at all. Dumbo's mother is exiled for trying to protect her son from bullies. This is aesthetically similar to something along the lines of the Marian sacrifice. She watches her innocent son take this metaphorical cross, knowing she cannot and should not protect him from his mission of personal development. Dumbo was at risk of becoming overprotected for his unusual appearance, but such overprotection would have only made his problems worse. This is a discussion of the Oedipal devouring mother, which Dumbo's mother is not, or perhaps did not have the opportunity to be. She was able to protect Dumbo from cruel, gossiping adult elephants who the audience will see as villainous right off the bat. But at this point in the film, Dumbo's mom is locked away and he is stuck in the real world. Development begins. I also find it interesting that the main kid bullying Dumbo for his big ears has some pretty big ears himself. This is simply profound. I often hear it said that hurt people, and helped people help people. It's probably rarely been asked, but what might this character have suffered before his brief and villainous portrayal? Are we supposed to hate him? It's important that Dumbo and his mother were not fully developed in this scene for the sake of storytelling, but if they were more fully developed, loving their enemy, they likely could have responded in a way that modeled a better example for this bully, who was likely hurting and trying to hide his own pain by passing it off on someone else. To be a believable character, this backstory was very possibly developed by the filmmakers and then hidden from the audience. Much like the feather scene, which we'll discuss in a bit, the movie makers want to give the audience some credit, allowing us to put the pieces together for ourselves. Dumbo 2 was canceled, but in my opinion, the best Dumbo sequel would have followed the development of this boy specifically, who very possibly could have grown into a hero himself in a different story after overcoming similar trials and humiliations, only to learn that the meaning of life waits for those who learn to empower others as effectively as possible rather than tearing them down. Oh man, we better move on. The empowering rat recognizes Dumbo's predicament early, sees value in helping, speaks directly into the ringleader's unconscious while he's asleep on behalf of Dumbo's future, and teaches us that being stabbed in the butt with a pin is better than hiding. During their act, the gossiping elephants cannot work together without resorting to drama and insult. Bickering as they've so often practiced, they struggle to perform their function in a joyless, symbolic fashion. The metaphor is striking. They are literally stepping all over each other and at one point appear to be strangling one another for stability. One lifts herself up at another's expense, both physically and verbally. They make a bad situation worse. This scene demonstrates the fruit of drama, blame, arrogance, pride, and vanity. It's a discussion of human behavior. We gleefully discuss another's fault to proclaim our own innocence. It's a discussion of denial. The imagery depicted in this scene is simply brilliant. If I slander you, I'm stepping on you, and eventually falling down with you. Unless someone steps up with honesty and integrity, we suffer and fall together. Our pain is intertwined and we are responsible for each other. Their disdain for Dumbo minimizes his chances of success in this formative scenario as he's thrust into the circus act afraid and unloved. They proceed to blame him when everything goes wrong instead of considering the part they might have played for even a moment. They vow to banish Dumbo from his own species. Similar disasters occur in the real world, especially among young men who feel hated, blamed, or unwanted. Will they follow Dumbo's hero arc or resort to the same beast of blame that caused their problems to begin with? That decision is up to each of us, hero or villain. Terrifyingly, I think it's a lot easier to choose the villain arc than people realize. The bickering elephants remind us that the wicked eventually devour their own, and they are a discussion of the nature of hell itself. Soon after, Dumbo is made into a clown. They make him jump from a burning building into pie as a kind of humiliation ritual. This scene is particularly upsetting because it depicts the punishment of innocence, again akin to Christ on the cross. This wounds and challenges the audience, who are now deeply invested, anticipating redemption. After a hard day's work, the clowns devise a reckless, dangerous plan for Dumbo. Their silhouettes are shadows behind an illuminated tent, which depict them void of any facial expression, depth, or humanity. As they drink bottles of alcohol and demonstrate the typical drunk courage, they discuss wild and unreasonable ambitions, and then find the courage to ask the boss for a raise. They're invincible for now, confident and soon to be hung over in a pile of face paint and vomit. The clowns aren't evil by sins of gossip or pride, but of gluttony, greed, and ignorance. Failure to wonder, failure to seek, failure to take the hint or to go against the failing group consensus. In the real world, this type of person does not know they are a clown. They're merely going with the flow. Both the gossiping elephants and the clowns are hive minds, a group of individuals forsaking their better judgment in total denial, conforming to the wrong crowd, and becoming bad products of bad environments. Hey, take a second to subscribe to my channel real quick. I'm a real underdog, just like Dumbo if you haven't noticed. The pink elephants are obviously a hallucination. This is an accurate discussion about the risks and unpredictable nature of substance experimentation or confronting the unknown in general. The bubble blowing is likely a euphemism. I want to stress that drugs and alcohol are not necessary to confront the unknown, but in this case, Dumbo and the rat are now up high, literally. They have landed somewhere unknown, mistaking the birds themselves for being down low when they are indeed up high. It's a discussion of youth recklessness during boredom, and perhaps its necessity or inevitability. The crows are the strange people you meet after choosing to play with chaos. They're not so bad, but are they good? They don't seem to take anything too seriously, but they also have a bit of wisdom. How did we get here? Maybe you flew up. Can the crows be taken seriously? Are they helping or mocking? These are the type of people we might meet on our life adventure. We learn that the crows are genuine and willing to help. I joke that it takes a village to raise an idiot, and Dumbo now has his village of support between the mouse and the crows, so he discovers he actually can fly, thanks to a feather he's told is magic but isn't actually helping. It's a placebo. It symbolizes artificial faith. It's something for now, but he's going to need something better to really complete his hero arc and fly genuinely in true faith. It's also worth mentioning that for some reason, the crows don't want to spell it out for Dumbo directly that he really can fly and by his own power. I've heard recently that if you inform someone of their destiny or purpose, that they will resent you for robbing them of the opportunity to figure it out for themselves. I'm suspicious that the writers knew this intuitively. I'm impressed and thankful that this psychological tendency is captured in the movie, because it happens to all of us. Our mentors need to give us a bit of credit, let us stumble and fall. It doesn't work to hover over someone's shoulder as they learn, as if we could force them to not make a mistake. So Dumbo needed to discover the authenticity of his gift on his own, along with the opportunities or hints from his friends afforded to him by circumstance or God. It's maybe useful to remember on occasion that this is not a movie about circus animals, it's a movie about human nature. It's a movie about development. The flying elephant is a symbol of the impossible, or the miraculous. How do we perceive a resurrection of any kind? This event is the realization of purpose. It turns out that Dumbo has big ears for a reason. There was a plan, a story within nature. We all have flaws and abnormalities, but will we learn to fly with our insufficiencies, or are we too busy complaining about them? There's yet another layer to Dumbo's success. Not only can he fly, but the past was meaningful all along. We just couldn't see it until now. Each hardship was necessary for his story. All of our lives tell similar stories as we grow toward our potential or toward our destruction. We each have a hero arc or a villain arc. I've heard that even the postmodern intellectuals understand that we see our lives as stories. This is exciting because we learn that our lives follow meaningful patterns, indicating a plan or a divine author. We cannot see the reason for our big ears when we are underdeveloped or for our pain in the moment. But like weightlifting, the turmoil we experience can strengthen us if we're willing to endure it courageously. So Dumbo loses his fake magic feather to discover that the miracle is in fact real, only after discovering genuine faith at the last possible second when falling to what would have likely been his death at the hands of the clowns and corrupt circus. Dumbo flies all over the place. In the end, his mother is given a place of comfort and status while her son soars in the sky. Symbolically, this probably gives off more Marian Queen of Heaven vibes. There is victory in the end, and evil is put in its place. This is a movie about life. Unfairness, chaos, courage, development, empowerment, and God's plan for your big ears coming into focus. I didn't have anything to say about the Song of the Roustabouts initially. I was watching the movie pretty casually and just totally failed to realize that they were assembling the circus tent during this scene. I think it's positively striking that they chose to depict this scene during a thunderstorm, complete with muddied earth below. So upon further examination, this scene went from being something I was totally indifferent about to being one of the most impactful moments of the entire movie for me. Make no mistake, the world Dumbo presents is grim, but it's also fairly true to life, and this scene really communicates the toil of day-to-day living. In order for human beings to have even basic security and running water, we toil relentlessly. If we have enough peacetime and security to justify leisure, we put together things like circuses, again toiling relentlessly. Our every want and need is produced through toil. Adam's punishment for the first sin was toil outside the Garden of Paradise. But the scene really communicates the fact that nobody's efforts are wasted within the system of the circus. Animals are put to work. The boss demands efficiency because things simply cannot go wrong. If something does go wrong, everybody pays the price. But perhaps this is the origin of the old saying, "The show must go on." So, on a personal note, I haven't been to a real traveling circus, and I've never known a circus worker, at least that I can recall. That being said, I have known a carny or two, and let me tell you, they are both interesting and hard-working. Much, much more so than you might think on both virtues. I'm actually not sure if being interesting is really considered a virtue, but I've always kind of treated it as one. I might be off on this, but I dig res. Carnies are baffling. If you ever have the opportunity to talk with one, I recommend it. Seriously, ask every question that you can think of and get as many stories as you can out of them. You never know when the opportunity will present itself again. These people have seen things you simply would not expect. And unless you plan on joining a traveling carnival for yourself, you'll never get closer than their first-hand accounts. It's an opportunity to amass some genuine perspective about the world. That amounts to wisdom. I've become a bit fanatic about listening to people and their stories. Not everyone is willing to share their stories, but everyone has them. Some people have a lot. Carnies are high on my list. The person I talked to defied all expectation and assumption, I admit. I don't know what I expected going into the conversation, but I was still caught off guard. Perhaps most surprising was the regular 17-hour workdays and zero-tolerance drug policies. I wouldn't have guessed. Things get a lot weirder from there, but that's a very interesting place to start. Carnies, people on the outside of polite society, working like absolute dogs, sober, it sure painted a picture for me. In any case, painstakingly assembling something like a circus tent that's supposed to be happy and full of life, but in the mud, darkness, lightning, and pouring rain, it's a brutal animation. This scene creates an enigma of emotion for me. I found this shot with the hoisting of the center pole to be particularly devastating. Ropes drenched with rainwater falling like teardrops onto the squishing, unpredictable, muddy ground below as lightning flashes threaten to strike the indifferent iron rod, reaching upward toward the belly of the beast itself, the storm within us all. So what do I think the message of the movie was? Dumbo raises many pertinent discussions, hence being more meaningful than average. But in short, it's a discussion about the process of development, which is the human mission. The movie is a parable about trusting the process despite the confusion and frustration along the way. We often don't see the point of things until later. Those same big ears that get you mocked and ostracized will one day fly you home. Development is certainly the word, and that concept peaks with Dumbo's last-second transformation from childhood gullibility, the feather, to genuine faith, losing the feather. If Dumbo would have chosen blame, self-pity, or resentment for his circumstances, he likely would have died at the hands of the clowns. Dumbo also really needed the rat, and that's a major lesson concerning the importance of friendship and mutual development. If he wouldn't have had a mentor or a friend to push him, challenge him, and grow with him, he would have needed to somehow become such a beacon of hope for someone else. The rodent's rewards for helping Dumbo were continuous, as he was living a life of service, companionship, and friendship. Perhaps he didn't have a friend either, so that was his motive to become one. As a result, he gained the adventure of a lifetime, as well as additional wisdom from confronting the unknown. He was empowered and emboldened by the love he gave away. He demonstrates a correct mode of being in a corrupt world, or the fallen world described in Genesis. What's the lesson of Dumbo? In a world of gossiping elephants, become an empowering rat. I suppose my point with all this is that we have a choice to make. We can look for the deeper meaning and have discussions such as this, or we can just dismiss the whole conversation altogether. Perhaps I could be accused of reading too much into things, but I think that's the spirit of cynicism talking. That mentality lacks curiosity, wanting things to be simple and not wanting to think or examine deeper meaning. Listen, life appears to be meaningful. There are patterns, rewards, and consequences absolutely everywhere. And if we are paying attention, we can benefit rather than suffer as a result. If a person does not believe in patterns and profundity, they can't benefit from them. They cannot learn lessons as easily or amass the same wisdom from life experience. Patterns are tendencies. If I want what someone has, I can do what they are doing. Again, actions have consequences and rewards. They also create habits, and that really helps to know. Dumbo, like any work of fiction, is a movie about entities navigating their routines and thus their habits. The movie discusses personal development first and foremost, and that is essential. That's why they show stuff like this to kids. We're training them to get out there and face the world. If we showed them a lesser message, the movie would be less captivating. This all works because life is meaningful. To believe otherwise really is boring. And you know how I feel about boredom. As far as animated movies go, I think Dumbo is unusually true to life, considering the fact that there isn't really a traditional villain. There's no figure like Jafar or Gaston in the picture. Instead, Dumbo is pitted against the harshness of life itself, which is relatable considering the fact that such exaggerated bullies aren't so common in real life, especially after high school. But it's actually very clever writing, cause instead of there being one big bad guy who is plainly evil, Dumbo deals with numerous quasi-villainous people and cliques, primarily the gossiping elephants, ringleader, and clowns, but again, his problems seem much more true to life as a result. I don't know about you, but I've usually got several big problems rather than one huge one to contend with, so this just seems natural. Also, it's essential to reiterate the fact that Dumbo didn't play the victim. He progresses through the movie in a bumbling fashion, but he's also quite courageous. We can infer that a quitter or coward would not have become the hero in the end. Similarly, in The Lion King, Simba has to face the reality of his mistake. His disobedience and cowardice resulted in disaster, but he owned up to his mistakes, thus completing the hero arc. The lesson is that the hero doesn't hide from the fact that they messed up. They move forward boldly despite the pain. This is to carry our cross, perhaps the essential human maneuver. The alternative is utter turmoil, blame, cowardice, and complacency. Moving on, there is a happy shot of the gossiping elephants seeming to approve of Dumbo's flight at the end. They seem to have seen the error of their ways as Dumbo brings honor to their tribe. This seems to me like a bit of a stretch. Perhaps the producers were really working to squeeze every drop of potential happiness they could after such a punishing movie, but it's been my experience that the bitter and blameful don't usually tend to change once they're really set in their ways, which is the type of person I thought the gossiping elephants were trying to convey. But I guess instead of scowling in disdain and jealousy, it appears that they've had a change of heart. They're happy for the hero whose failure they once preyed on. I suppose stranger things have happened, but it's a valuable lesson nonetheless. Be nice to everyone. You never know when one of them is going to start flying, and you never know when you're going to start flying if you're committed to honesty and courage. So moral of the story, in a world of tyrannical ringleaders, gossiping elephants, and incompetent clowns, be a developing elephant or an empowering rat. Hey, I've been wanting to do a talk like this about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory for a couple years now. Would you guys watch that? What movie do you think I should talk about next? I really don't want to go much past 1998 or 99, but let me know what you think. Let's keep talking about this stuff. I think we should stick together these days. Follow, subscribe, comment, and share this video. I appreciate you guys. Also, check out this video, Story of Four Punks, if you want to know more about me and the life I've lived. Later.